Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Jonathan. Hi,
Oh,
Tanya.
hi, Dan.
It's nice to see you in person, Jonathan.
Yeah, likewise.
Hey Dan.
Hi. So I don't think we're going to have too many attendees today, but it is being recorded so that other folks can see it um, at another time. So if you're familiar with OER, this might be some repeat information for you, but it's a really good stuff. So I believe we are recording. Let me just check. Yes, we are recording. Perfect. All right, I'm going to get started. So, happy Open Education Week. This is the first of 3 events this week. So today we have Beginner's Guide to OER. It's really getting you started on the basics. Tomorrow we have a session on delivering OER if you are interested in using OER in your courses. And then on Friday, we have a session on the OER Publishing Support Program. So it's really information about that. This presentation is presented by Athabasca University Library. So let's start with who am I? Well, I'm Dan Cocroft. I'm the OER librarian. I will tell you what OER stands for in just a moment. But first, I'd like to acknowledge that Athabasca University is a university that teaches and has employees all over Canada and the world. So we have many different traditional territories being represented. As for myself, I live on traditional territory of the Coast Salish people. So that would include Comox First Nation, Sonawas First Nation, and the Qualicum First Nation. So let's have a little look at our map here. Where are we going today? So the first will be an introduction to OER, so it gives you a real basic start. Then we're going to talk about copyright and licensing. So these are all different little building blocks that come together to help you understand how the big picture works together. We're going to look at finding OER, how to assess the OER that you find, how to deliver the OER you find, and even talk about creating your own OER. Then we're going to touch on some of the library resources available, the OER Publishing Support Program, and time for questions afterwards. I tend to talk quite quickly, so there will probably be lots of time, so don't worry about that. So what is OER? Well, first of all, it stands for Open Educational Resources. So if we use like the formal definition from UNESCO, it's open educational resources are teaching, learning, and research materials in any medium, digital or otherwise, that reside in the public domain or have been released under an open license that permits no cost access, use, adaptation, and redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. So from that definition, we can see OER is very much about licensing. What are you allowed to do with this specific resource? When we think about OER, we're often comparing, contrasting it with open access material. So open access material, I'm sure many of you are familiar with open access publications. So if you're looking at scientific research that's published in an open journal, you can read that for free and share it without any restriction. So OER takes that one step farther. So in the UNESCO definition, it says there adaptation. So that means we can change it. We can modify it to suit our needs. If you're not sure if something counts as OER or not, take a look at the license and see if it covers the 5 OERs of OER. So it will allow you to retain a copy of yourself, revise it, so make changes, remix, which means combining different resources together, reuse, and redistribute. If you can do all those 5 things, it counts as OER. There are many advantages to using OER. So I'm going to cover them just briefly now, but the big ones are cost savings. So this means cost savings for institutions who pay for resources, such as AU, and big cost savings for students. So when students are tasked with buying that $400 math textbook, only to find that there's a new edition coming out next year, can now use a free textbook. They're also free to modify. So this means that if you want to adapt the context of the resource, say you're using an OER textbook that has American examples, you can change those to Canadian examples if you'd like. The licensing system is fairly easy to understand, and the one of my favorite advantages of using OER is that they're accessible anywhere at any time. So this means that students can keep them forever. They can access them before their course starts, and they can take them with them. They can download it and put it on a USB stick, and just do really whatever they'd like with it. I like to make a key distinction here between free versus open. So a lot of folks will come to me and say, I found this resource on the internet. Am I able to use it in this specific way? So we have to look at the license. So something might be available online, but it may not be OER. So ask yourself these two questions. Is it openly licensed? And if it is, what are the rights granted to you by that specific license? So we'll go into some specific licenses later, and you can see examples of that. Now, what are OER exactly? I always talk about them as textbooks because I mostly work with textbooks, but OER can be all kinds of things. They could be images. So if you want to openly license an image you create or a picture you take, you can do that. Those can be videos, interactive objects, even entire courses can be openly licensed. So any digital object can count as OER as if it's openly licensed to allow for modification. That's the key part, the modification. Today, I'm really going to focus on textbooks. That's what most people use OER for in my sphere. But just know that OER can count as many different things. Let's jump right into licensing. Licensing is a big, scary word as it involves copyright and all these legal implications, but we can kind of just dip our toes in and touch on the basics here. So everyone's familiar with this C at the top here, the all rights reserved. This means the work is protected by Canadian copyright law. So in Canada, whenever you create something, it's automatically protected. So that means you have certain rights, and you can only let other people know how your work may be used. The phrase all rights reserved is kind of just a formality at this point. It doesn't really mean anything. It's the copyright symbol that does everything for you. We also have a licensing system called Creative Commons. So we like to call this some rights reserved. Essentially, instead of asking people to reach out to you to ask how they may use your work, you're letting them know ahead of time. This is how my work may be used. So we usually see this demonstrated or shown as the CC logo with two C's in there. We call this type of licensing open licensing. When we talk about Creative Commons, we're talking about a license that has four different sort of layers or components in any combination, I should say. The first component is attribution. So actually, all Creative Commons licenses require attribution. This means that when you use a Creative Commons work, you have to attribute the original creator of the work. We also have non-commercial. This means you're saying to others, you may use my work, but you can't sell it. You can't make money off of it. Share alike is saying that, hey, you can use my work, but you can't change the license. You have to use the same license that I have specified if you want to reuse the work. Where that might come in to play is if someone takes a, let's say, a textbook, and they want to make it more restrictive licensing, like they want to add non-commercial to it, something like that, which you can do. You can't do that if the original creator specifies share alike. Finally, we have no derivatives, ND. So you may remember before I was talking about that distinction between open access material and OER. Well, this is where we draw the line. So no derivatives mean that the work cannot be modified. So often when you see, or almost always when you see open access works, they will have a no derivatives symbol on it. And like I said, you can really mix and match these symbols to create the license you want. So if you're creating an OER, you could have not commercial if you wanted, share alike if you wanted, and really sort of make it the way you like it. So with all that in mind, let's talk about the licensing spectrum. So I have the most restrictive on the left-hand side here. All rights reserved. On the right-hand side, we have public domain. Public domain items usually enter the public domain once the author has died and 7 years have passed. That number does change with various agreements, but right now it is 70 years plus the author's life. Or something called, well, there's a Creative Commons license where you can specify that it's public domain. In the middle, we have some rights reserved. So instead of saying you may do whatever you want with my work, you're saying you may do these specific things with my work. So any work may exist on the spectrum in some way or other. So there's more open licenses and more closed licenses. So let's jump topics here and talk about finding OER. So you're interested in OER, you want to know what's out there. Maybe you do some Google searching and find, oh, there's really not that much out there. Well, there's a couple things you can do. First thing you can do is ask for help. So that's what I do here at AU. A lot of my work involves finding OER for books. But I'm also going to set you up with the skills to do it on your own. So before you search, I like to pose a few questions. The first being, do you want a whole meal or ingredients? And what I mean by that is, do you want an OER that fits all your purposes and you don't have to modify it? Or do you want a few different OER that meet your needs piecemeal and put them together? Which formats do you need? Do you need your text to be reflowable, for example? Do you have to meet accessibility standards? These are big questions. Where you put it, what kind of formats does the host support? Finally, I like to ask, what are some of the most relevant keywords? Whether you're conducting a search yourself or you're asking me to conduct the search, this is super helpful because it's kind of the Wild West out there. So many different people are using different keywords to describe their resource. And it's really helpful to have a variety of search terms. Other tips and tricks include that free does not equal open, like we mentioned before. So just because you find it on the internet and can read it and download it does not mean you are allowed to use that in your course. Also use OER-specific databases and repositories. So I want to give you a few examples of those. There's lots out there, but some of my favorites. Remember that searching is an iterative process. So your first search will not be as effective as your second search and so on. So the more you search and the more you familiarize yourself with the databases and the search terms and find out what's effective, you'll get better and better at your searching. I recommend to kind of start broad and narrow down as you refine your search. For other searches, what we do in the library for very specific topics, we kind of look at it the other way to start narrow because there's so many results. But one of the things with OER is that um, we're still coming into our own. We're still seeing those big subjects being overrepresented and more specific niche subjects being underrepresented. So I like to recommend to start broad and then narrow down your search um, if you have a lot of results. There's quite a few places to look, like I mentioned before. These are my favorite three places. OpenStax, they really only cover the biggest, most used subjects, but boy, they are the best. They're kind of the gold standard for OER. So they will not only publish these big open textbooks, but they'll also publish lists of errata every year. So when they get all these people using it, they get feedback. Hey, can you fix the sentence? This math problem has an error, etc., etc. So the text is constantly improving, all for free, which is great. They often also release them with course packages, instructor resources, quizzes, basically everything you need to run a course. They also have integrations with LMS if you're interested in that. So you can load it directly into Brightspace. I personally don't recommend that, and we're going to cover that in a few. And I can't not mention my own OER by discipline guide. So this is something I update every year. So I've mapped the subjects covered at AU to the available OER. So this is a guide you can search by keyword. You can search it by course number, or you can just browse the subjects. And you can find things that are recommended for any course at AU. Open Textbook Library is another great place because it doesn't just capture OER from one publisher like OpenStax. It'll capture text from all different publishers around the world. So many great things there. There are bigger OER repositories. They tend to capture a breadth of formats. So you'll find interactive objects in their images, etc. But if you're looking for textbooks, these three are my top picks. Well, let's say you do find an OER. How do you assess it? Well, it's true that OER are less likely to be peer reviewed, at least in the traditional sense that we're familiar with in say, like a book publishing world. But they are often updated to improve quality. So I mentioned OpenStax has that errata program where they revise their textbooks every year, which is amazing. Other publishers will release a new edition every couple of years, so those are always good to keep an eye out for. And then some repositories also have review sections. So I mentioned the Open Textbook Library, they'll have reviews there too. So folks can, once they use them in a course, they can assess them on a variety of categories. And you can see how it might fit your needs. So those categories include audience, content accuracy, comprehensiveness, relevancy, longevity, clarity, interface, organization, consistency, grammar, and spelling, modularity, and diversity inclusion. So all kinds of things. This is also the rubric I use when I'm evaluating OER textbooks for use in courses. So that's freely available. If you found a textbook you like, an OER textbook, and you want to use it in a course, there's a few things to keep in mind. So if you don't want to make modifications to it, it's fair to think about it as the same way you would think about a traditional like digital textbook. So some OER publishers, like I mentioned, OpenStax, they offer that LMS integration. as course cartridges to load the content directly into your course. Personally, I think it's better to keep a clear separation between your course and your OER. Now, the pros of that is that there's more control of your textbook. So you're less bound by those revision cycles. You can really edit the content when you need to. It's easier for others to adapt. So it's not an OER, like an open resource in a closed space. People can take it if it's external and just adapt it as is. The licensing is a little bit clearer as well. So we have a little bit more restrictive intellectual property policy here at AU. So when faculty are creating content in the course of their teaching and learning duties, that content actually belongs to the university. So when you are combining your own work with something that's already licensed in a closed space, it gets a little bit more complicated as to what you're allowed to do legally. Like I mentioned, the courses aren't public either, so people around the world can't make use of it either. If you found an OER, you've assessed it, you're using it in your course, maybe externally, maybe you're keeping it in the DRR, you want to attribute it. So the way to remember this is to remember tassel, like the tassel on a grad cap. So that will be title, author, source, and license. I have an image here of Read, Think, Write to Writing in University. This was one of our first OER published titles through the OER Publishing Support Program. And it can be cited like this. So you have the title, Read, Think, Write, Writing in University. Then you have the author. And the source is a press. And then you have the license terms. Now, Read, Think, Write, Writing in University is linked to the original resource, so anyone can see where does it live, what does it look like, as is the license. So the license is linked to the license terms available on the Creative Commons website. If you remember, when we talked about Creative Commons licenses, we have some clues as to what the license means just by these letters. So CC means Creative Commons. BY means by or attribute, so you have to attribute the original author. Non-commercial means that someone can't take Pam and Adian's work and make money off of it. And share alike means that whoever modifies it or reuses it must release it under the same license. So they can't add anything more restrictive to it. I also wanted to share some of the adopted OER at AAU. So there are some people who modify OER and make their own versions, but there's lots of people who just find the right OER and use it as is. So this is just a small sample of adopted OER at AU. You can see on this bottom one here, it actually has the license right on the cover. Well, what if you like parts of OER, but not the other parts? Maybe you want to take an OER and you want to cut out a few chapters. Where do you find the other content in another OER? Maybe you want to combine them. Maybe you want to make a new OER. You can do that. So you can mix and match different chapters, sections, or entire books. You can add openly licensed images, interactive objects, all that type of thing. When you're creating a new OER from different pieces, we have two distinctions that we need to keep in mind. One is called a remix, and the other is called a collection. So we like to think about this as a TV dinner and a smoothie. So in a smoothie, you've got all these different ingredients, right? And then we mix them all together, and the new work or the smoothie at the end is inseparable. You can't pull out the strawberries again. So the new derivative work has one license. So all those materials have to be compatible. They have to have compatible licenses. So, for example, if one says share alike and the others don't, you're going to have to change the other one to be share alike, that type of thing. The other option is a TV dinner. So we use TV dinner because you have these trays where all the ingredients are clearly separated. This means that you can actually keep different licenses in the whole work. So they can be actually have contradictory licenses. You can even use copyrighted work in OER. I know that sounds completely wrong, but it is correct. If you have permission, you can use you can use copyrighted material in OER. You just need to clearly delineate what the license is of that particular aspect of it. The same goes for differently licensed material. So if one is just says CC BY and the other one says CC BY NC, as long as you're indicating those different paragraphs with those different images belong to their own license and not to the license of the whole work, then you're good to go. It can get a little confusing. There's some charts and graphs that you can look at, but if you're never not sure, just send it my way and I can let you know. Speaking of resources, I am a resource, of course. Anytime you have questions about OER, open licensing, Creative Commons, that type of thing, please send them my way. We also have a few other things at the library. We have an OER guide. So if you're interested about learning the basics that we've covered here today, but you know that's a lot of information at once, you can go through it at your own pace. I also have a copyright and licensing mini course to drill those concepts into you. We also have an open community of practice. So this is a quarterly meeting where we talk about all things related to open. So that includes open access, open data, open pedagogy, all the different opens. Just chat about various topics, and it's a really open space for anyone who is perhaps not too familiar with it. It's a really good place to come if you want to ask other people what their experiences have been. So the next session is actually March 12th, so next week, next Wednesday, I believe, at noon Mountain Time. So we're going to talk about open futures. And just as a teaser to that, we're actually going to talk about the results of our OER survey that's been run. Well, if you want to find links to these resources, the hub, the place to go is the OER Community Corner over on Engage. So I post news there, events, interesting articles, and we have links to all our resources there as well. Speaking of the survey, it does close next week, the day before our community of practice session, but it's still available. So if you're a faculty member and you're interested in contributing to the future of OER here at AU, or at least the services that the library provides, we'd love to have your voice in that. The link will be in the Engage group as well. I wanted also to talk about the OER Publishing Support Program. We're going to talk about this in more detail on Friday's session, but I'm going to give you just the basics right now. So this is an initiative that provides comprehensive support and funding for the development of accessible, consistent, high-quality, openly licensed resources for AU courses. So what does that mean? Well, folks will come to us with an idea. Maybe they have an OER textbook picked out, but it's not quite what they're looking for. It's maybe the quality is lacking in some areas, or there's chapters where they just don't have the topics covered that's necessary. Maybe they need something that's super accessible and polished. Well, this program is just for that. So we provide project management support, copy editing, typesetting, design, file conversion, DOI registration, the works. This is a program that's through AU Press, so they're very familiar with these different processes. We'll work together to um, guide you through that publication process. We'll have clear, consistent communication throughout and collaboration with course production staff too. Make sure all those timelines are met. Who is supporting you in that? Well, it's myself, it's McKinley Darlington, who's the interim director of AU Press. And recently we've been joined by Kyle Flemmer, who is the OER project coordinator at AU Press. He's the hands-on guy, he's the doer, and he's great. So what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for OER ready authors, people who have a really clear vision of the final output, what they're looking for. Folks who are super confident in their selected OER, or at least the plan they have to build an OER. We tend to look for projects that are focused on content, not technology. Our previous lead of the production OER publishing support program, Megan Hall, she liked to use this image of a cake. So we really need to focus on that base cake first before we talk about sprinkles and icing. In terms of content, we tend to focus on publication-friendly content. So text-based content is what the press is used to, what they excel at. However, we have considered some video projects in the past. So we're really open to widening this program scope and seeing what we can do. Existing material is ideal. So if you can find OER that's really primed for adoption, adaptation, or remixing, that would be great. What I mean by that is it's a little bit harder to pull out content that's in a closed space or a particular file format. If we get a variety of file formats, it's really easy to pull it into our process. We're also looking for comprehensive, accurate, and organized information that's not going to be obsolete in a short period of time. So if you're going to pick an OER, it'd be great if you could pick the most recent edition. And if you're not sure if it is, I can help you check that out. So what happens to this program? What's the output? So AU Press has a remix imprint. So this is where students will access it on the Manifold program. It gives learners options to refill the text they can use on any device. They can read it online, of course. They can download it in a multiplicity of formats. They can annotate the text, highlight different sections, and they can even generate citations. So far, we've published 3 books with many more to come. This includes Critical Thinking, Logic, and Argument. It's a philosophy textbook. We have a computer science textbook, Introduction to Computer Programming Python. And of course, we have the Read, Think, Write English textbook that we talked about earlier. Another benefit of this program is that it has a bit of a global impact. So I'll take these published titles and I'll share them on global repositories. So this really fulfills the promise of OER, that other people can take your work and they can translate it, they can localize it or customize it to meet their needs. So we're really focused on that gold standard of published OER. So there is an application process for this program. There's so many folks interested that we need to pace ourselves. So every January, this program opens and we receive all kinds of interesting proposals. So the first step would be to select your OER. So your chances are a lot better if we can help you find text that might work for you as is, text that we can help you modify to meet your needs. And throughout that process, I'm there to help you. So I can guide you through the application process or even finding OER anywhere along there. Once you're confident in your resource choice, you can request an application form by either contacting me or oer@thebescu.ca. And the application window, like I said, opens every January. But this year we are extending that opening period. So if you have any interest, please reach out and we'll see what we can do for you. And with that, we are finished our presentation. So thank you for listening. It's kind of a whirlwind tour of OER. Check out those resources over at the community corner over OER community corner over on Engage. If you have any questions, this is a great time to ask them. Thanks, Tanya. Do we have chat here? Let's see. You're most welcome. And I have recorded this session as well, so if you ever want to review it, I'll be posting the recording over on the OER community corner. Let's give folks a few minutes to see if they have any burning questions in the chat or on mic. Please let me know. And otherwise, we will end quite a bit early and give you back some time in your day. Like I said, I tend to speak quite quickly. And when we do have questions, they're usually, they take up the rest of the time. So I like to give folks a lot of time. All right, hearing nothing, thank you so much for attending and happy Open Education Week. We'll see you on Wednesday, which is tomorrow already, with the next session on delivering OER. And on Friday as well with our info session on the OER Publishing Support Program. So take care and have a great day.